Hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we're discussing the new Netflix documentary Bad Influence, the dark side of Kidfluencing. So briefly, the documentary unpacks the rise of Piper on YouTube and her relationship to Tiffany Smith, her very exploitative mother. The documentary interviews child psychologists, lawyers, social media experts, as well as Piper's friends and family. The documentary is not a shot at Piper, but mostly a shot at Tiffany and every other adult that uses their power to exploit children for profit. It uses Piper's story to explore this world of child influencing in general. And overall, I do think it's worth a watch. Every episode gets darker and darker, and by the end, you wonder if a solution is even possible. And it also makes you worry about young boys and girls who consume this type of content and believe they have much more in common with these influencers than they really do. The first episode gives us this rudimentary understanding of social media in general. The only thing I learned surprisingly was TikTok was called Musical.ly. I didn't know that personally. I felt the episodes were paced really well. The first episode introduces us to Piper and her mother. And from the start, we get the sense that Piper's mother, Tiffany, was way more interested in breaking into the entertainment industry than her own daughter. At the time, social media was seen as an avenue to get exposure in order to break into mainstream media like TV and film. Tiffany was one of the few adults that really recognized the power of platforms like YouTube not only overtake mainstream media in terms of popularity, but also in revenue. When Piper started accumulating followers, her mother decided to commit to YouTube and social media full time. The key to YouTube is collaboration. Ideally, if you want to grow fast, you need to find other people to help you. Tiffany had this remarkable way of seducing parents into trusting them with their child. And I wanted to be sympathetic towards these parents, but there's just no way I would leave my child alone with a complete adult shooting videos in their home. My parents would not even allow me to have sleepovers, let alone sleepovers in a house full of other kids they know nothing about. And I think a lot of these parents were very similar to Tiffany in that they also hoped that their child would break into the entertainment industry. And they believed that by working with Tiffany, their child would get enough exposure to do that. And the way these parents explained themselves, I felt was a bit weak. Now, I understand how they were exploited financially. That to me was completely plausible. No one really understood the power of YouTube, especially, and its ability to generate money. I mean, a lot of people just didn't understand that not only could it make money, but it could make enough money to buy a house. Like, this is not something that was really appreciated until years into the application. Tiffany managed to expand on her daughter's success by leeching off all these children and taking a percentage of their earnings. And Tiffany was not encouraging creativity. She wasn't encouraging them to develop their skills or produce great content. To be honest, she didn't care if these kids could read or write. She just wanted them to make money. Because a lot of these parents were very ignorant about the social media sphere, Tiffany had a lot of control regarding brand deals, and the type of content Tiffany was encouraging was seemingly innocent. However, the more you look into it, it's very clear that Tiffany knew exactly who their audience was, and she was catering to them. And in this case, their audience was mostly adult men. And anyone who refused to follow Tiffany's orders would be punished financially or bullied online so relentlessly that their channel would collapse. In addition, if parents interfered, she would encourage these children to emancipate. And it's very clear that Tiffany knew what she was doing, and whatever fine she had to pay, I don't think it was enough, because by the end of the documentary, we're told that she's very much still managing people, and probably her daughter. From what we learned in the documentary, it doesn't appear as though Piper had any control over her finances. Child influencers are not protected like child actors. And especially in the early days, Tiffany was free to do whatever she wanted. And what's disturbing is not so much her business practices, but her predatory behavior. A lot of people have trouble believing that women can be just as creepy and predatory as men. And it seems like Tiffany would exploit her daughter's friendships to prey on these kids. A lot of Piper's friends in the documentary spoke about how concerned they were for her. I think their concern and respect for Piper made them very reluctant to leave her alone with her mother. It feels like the way these kids were describing it, it was as if Tiffany was using her daughter to hold these kids almost captive. Like they kind of had a Stockholm syndrome, like they just didn't really know what to do. In the documentary, they describe how Tiffany would go into their room and touch them inappropriately. They also describe the lengths Tiffany would go to manipulate them, creating different characters in order to excuse her very sick behavior. And whatever she couldn't do to Piper's friends, she did to Piper. The documentary kind of touches on Tiffany's more predatory behavior. It kind of just hints at it without going deeper. We're told that one of Piper's biggest fans was a man posing as a woman named Megan. And not only would she receive gifts, her mother would force her to talk to this creepy man over the phone. And they also describe how Tiffany and Piper would go on these long drives, and when they returned, Piper would go up to her room and cry. And the documentary strongly insinuates that she was pimping her daughter out. Tiffany was a predator in plain sight. The documentary discusses her sick fascination with the young boys. And she even at one point forcibly kissed one on stream, and the boy she kissed noted how the video was deleted off the internet shortly afterwards. And whatever Tiffany was doing on the side by exploiting her daughter, it was clearly more lucrative than YouTube. And you get the sense that Tiffany has friends in very high places. And I think because it took us a long time as a society to realize how dangerous a lot of these applications are for young children, Tiffany basically got away with murder. I mean, you can monitor a set, but how on earth are you supposed to monitor someone's home? In addition, a lot of the people funding this content are adult men, and unfortunately these men are not tuning out anytime soon. There's really no way to restrict their access. So many of these online applications allow adults to subscribe to exclusive content made by minors. At the moment, Piper's account on YouTube has been demonetized, and YouTube usually demonetizes an account if that account is bringing way too much heat or way too much press to their platform. Now, I was going through Piper's Instagram and her YouTube page, and a lot of her content has gotten spicier, and I've watched a lot of commentary regarding Piper. It feels like she's almost preparing herself for a career in OnlyFans or something along those lines, but we're gonna have to wait to find out. Now, in terms of her relationship to her mother, we're not really sure what that's like, but I have the feeling that she very much still manages her career, or at least is involved in some way. Because they've been forced to make content for views and not necessarily good content, they're basically stuck in this box. And as a result, it's almost impossible for them to get out. It's almost like they have to go deeper into the rabbit hole. And the way that Tiffany was curating her daughter's content, I mean, something like OnlyFans was an inevitability. And in addition, I think what makes this type of content scary is because a lot of young boys and girls watch it, and they relate to a lot of these influencers a lot more than they should. And so they develop these kind of parasocial relationships to people like Piper. And there's nothing wrong with looking up to someone, but the problem is when you're watching this documentary, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. A lot of the boys and girls watching this content are very impressionable. Because a lot of this content is very much focused on their youth and really emphasizing their youth, what happens when they get older? Because Tiffany and a lot of the people managing these accounts, they're not really encouraging any type of creativity. It's not like, I mean, at least if you're on a set, you learn to work on a set and you can be an actor or a director, like you can kind of branch out into the entertainment industry. But if you're an influencer and your content has been geared specifically for views, what happens when you get older? In addition, what happens when you get older when most of the income you've generated is being controlled by your mother or father? This was a very sinister documentary. I think when it comes to child influencing, I mean, now we know the horrors of child actors and all the terrible things they've had to go through and how easily, I mean, the thing with Hollywood, now we're learning that a lot of these parents of these child actors just pimp their kids out. They didn't really care about them at all, and you see what's become of them. That's why a lot of child actors later become drug addicts, or they seem to have a lot of issues adjusting to society. And the same can be applied to, I think, these child influencers. And I think a lot of this content encourages young people to consider a career in adult entertainment. I think the difference between child actors and maybe child influencers, because you're seeing like how a lot of these young boys and girls, they kind of turn into these like OnlyFans content creators. Like it kind of goes down that path. And I think it's very scary how adult entertainment is slowly being normalized. And that's kind of what I took from the documentary, because when I go through her page, I mean, it just feels like a matter of time. And so that's also something to consider. Now, I don't know what the solution is, because you have two problems. First, the people watching are impressionable young people, and the people funding it are adult men. And this is a very toxic combination. And I really don't know if it's even possible to regulate such a thing. But you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.